Well, we are definitely getting the full effects of tropical moisture into this part of Texas, and this is really the deep tropical moisture. And you can see up above the really deep blue skies, and it's really a bit of a myth that tropical air masses are associated with haze. That's kind of a thing that's been circulated for decades, and there's some misunderstandings about that. But hazy weather is usually due to recirculating air from old polar air masses rather than tropical air. In fact, when they initially did the study on that, they found that when there was a very strong onshore flow component, this visibility tended to increase, and the skies would become blue like what you saw there. Well, this is the big story tonight, Tropical Storm Gordon, and you can see the spiral bands have already come on shore. The eye itself, located way out here, still offshore, and let's get a distance on that. That's only about 28 miles off the coast, just south of Mobile, that would be just south of these barrier islands. We'll just run a quick animation there. You can see the heaviest rain is already inland, and we're expecting the system to start slowing down as it moves into this part of Alabama and Mississippi, and there could be some very heavy rains up in this area, and we're talking possibly up to 12 inches. Direct from NHC, this is the current situation and the forecast. There was some speculation that we just might be able to crack that hurricane criteria there, that hurricane threshold, and we're definitely on the fence as far as that goes, but it's quickly going to turn into a tropical storm as it moves inland later tonight, and then a tropical depression as it heads up towards Arkansas. And you can see the distance between these dots slows down quite a bit, and this is only 12 hours of motion. So this is a big reason we're expecting rain, especially along the right track right there. So anywhere from Jackson, Mississippi, all the way up to Little Rock, you would probably want to be prepared for that. All right, we can take a look at the bird's eye view. Got a couple of satellite images. This is the visible image. This is just what your eyes would see if they were looking down on the storm. And let's roll this back to earlier when we actually had daylight. This is about 10 a.m. and we're looking at the Gulf. So there's Florida right there. There's Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. New Orleans is going to be about right there. So the system is obviously has no well-defined eye. It's somewhere in this cloud mass right there. And if we roll this forward, you can see the storm heading onshore. And finally, as the sun starts going down, we can start picking out the heavier convective elements. Let me get that back there. Yeah, like right in there, those are the heavier convective tops. But a better way to figure that out is to look at the infrared imagery. And let's roll that back. This is how it looked earlier. And you can see the very reddish colors with some black spots. All of this is a very cold anvil heading up to the upper parts of the troposphere. And really, let me slow that down a little bit. And you can see towards the very end right there, you notice how it turns a lot less red. That's cloud top warming, and that's usually associated with weakening. So this is earlier today, and then right around 4 or 5 p.m., that's where it fades out right there. I saw one little interesting feature in here. It looked like maybe a very tiny circulation. I want to say it was right. No, that spreads out concentrically. I don't know. I think that was probably just an artifact. Something caught my eye in there, and I think that was just the anvil top divergence going on as that moved up to the northwest. Anyway, yeah, with that last frame, you can see it's really losing steam there, and that's the latest frame we have. So the eye is somewhere right in here. So you can see there's really not a whole lot left as far as the circular structure on that storm. That's rapidly starting to shear out as it encounters the landmass, the friction. and also, of course, the lack of sensible heat with the cooler landmass there and the lack of moisture. All right, let's go ahead and do the area by area and start looking at more of the U.S. It's another beautiful day there in the northwest U.S. Just pretty much clear, but we can see those specks of cirrus moving quickly west to east. That means there's a jet up there. And we also see the cirrus down in Utah and Colorado spreading to the north. See how that moves up to the north like that. And some of the elements down here, they're moving either to the south or stationary. So that's telling us that there's some sort of upper level low or up level trough in this area right here. So that'll be something we'll look for on the maps. Southwestern U.S. shows the southwest monsoon in full effect. Lots of activity all the way from Nevada. It's kind of unusual to see the monsoon this far west. It does happen, especially in late June and July. Actually, that would be probably a little later, more like August before that happens. But yeah, right there. In fact, where I worked, Tonopah Test Range, right in there, that storm is right there in the Kawich Valley, Area 51 located about right there. So, yeah, pretty active, very, very active for this time of year. And activity all the way back to the Four Corners, Albuquerque, Flagstaff getting some showers. And we'll just do a quick animation there. You can see the marine layer along the California coast hugging that coastal area very tightly there. And also looks like some cells on the Sierra Nevadas, so even some of the moisture making it all the way out there. Okay, let's go down to Texas, and we're definitely in the tropical air. Slow that down just a little bit. Bring the hurricane into the right side there, or the tropical storm there. But there's that deep plume of moisture coming up north. Lots of high precipitable water making it northward, and we've just basically got the Gulf all opened up like that. And even when you go into the east central U.S., out there in Tennessee and Kentucky, it's a very healthy cumulus field out in that area. So yeah, this is definitely the peak of summer. Maybe not in terms of temperature, but certainly as far as moisture and instability. And down here, there's Gordon coming on shore. And we'll check back in on that towards the end and look at the radar some more. And I'm going to keep an eye on that dropped frames there, because I've suspected that has been an issue with eating up bandwidth. But looks like we're doing pretty good tonight. 0 dropped frames. Okay, this is the cirriform cloud right here. This is all cirrus, anvil blow-off, and cirrus debris. But underneath, this is a low cloud, maybe down at 3,000 or 4,000 feet, probably extending underneath. This is indicating upslope flow. So very likely in the low levels, we've probably got a wind flow coming like that right there. And I've not yet looked at the surface chart, but I would suspect there's something like that going on. Usually when there's a humid air mass in easterly winds, we get that stratus in that area. And you can see how it kind of follows the terrain. That's another indicator that that's kind of a low cloud there. And as we look out towards Iowa and Missouri, Missouri and Minnesota there, wow, repeat, another line of storms. It seems like this has been going on for a week or two. Every time I look at Iowa, they've got storms all up and down like that. So it looks like another day of that. And I think very likely what we've got here is tropical air out in this area, and then probably a polar air mass up in that region right there. And in between, likely a front right in there. Looking at the northeast U.S., roll that back right there. Not much going on really, but if we roll the animation, you can see kind of a spinning effect to the cloud field. There's an upper level high. In fact, I'm not going to say upper level. I'm going to call that more of a deep tropospheric high. In other words, it's basically a subtropical high, kind of a branch of the Bermuda high. And that looks like it's centered right in that area there. So that's high pressure there. And we've got that deep tropical moisture feeding into the Midwest like that. And eventually, as it moves north, somewhere in this area, it hits the polar frontal boundary. And then on the other side, we've got the dry, cool northwesterly flow coming in from Canada into New England there. So likely I would expect temperatures to be a little cooler in this area, although with this upper level high over Pennsylvania, that may keep a lot of this area here locked down with a little bit of heat. So maybe the cooler air might be way up there in Maine, just by the looks of that. So kind of what I'm showing you here is how I break down the satellite imagery and try to get a handle on what's going on. And then finally we have the southeastern U.S. Let's roll that. Once again we see old Gordon there coming on shore, and with the eye right here, the circulation going like this, that kind of enhances the prevailing southeasterly flow. So these are kind of joining forces, and that's probably helping boost the southeast components coming into Florida and Georgia there, and that's really driving that sea breeze inland. And there you see it moving across southern Georgia into the Tallahassee area. Lots of storms in that area. And then one other feature that you might notice, let me speed this up and take a look at the anvils there in Georgia. You can see they're kind of blowing off towards the east. See right here and right there, there's the anvils are blowing from west to east, and that's actually the outflow from the hurricane. Or I don't know. I saw that those winds were definitely up there. I don't know if that's a hurricane right at this minute, but it's very close, and it's still, as far as I know, a tropical storm. I'll check in on chat and see if that's changed. But in any case, the tropical storm is right there. And up in the upper parts of the troposphere, we've got this divergent pattern. And you can see a little bit of that in the cirrus field across Florida. And that is actually shearing off some of the tops of those storms there in Georgia and Florida. So we can certainly see that going on there on the satellite imagery. Okay, take a look at the surface map. Looks like the best moisture at this time over Texas, Oklahoma, and eastern Kansas there. But plenty of it to go around, even down in the southeast U.S. right there. And we can see the Bermuda High slightly north of its normal location. Looks like that's centered in Virginia, close to that upper level high there in Pennsylvania. And because of that northward displacement, things are just totally opened up. That's like leaving the front door wide open there. So all that moisture coming up northwest and meeting up with this front, and in between a few outflow boundaries. Looks like there's a couple there in Kansas, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And yeah, there's that polar high coming in from Saskatchewan. And north wind, kind of a slight upslope component there in the southeast in Rapid City there. Looks kind of like a straight northerly flow. So I think this is probably a little bit less upslope and maybe a little bit more isentropic lift. And that's something we haven't really seen much in the past few months. Everything tends to be convectively driven across much of the U.S., but with these strong frontal systems, we get what's basically overrunning or isentropic lift. And we're going to be looking at that more as we get into late September and October on this channel. So that's likely what's going on in that region there. And looks like frontal boundary all the way down to Salt Lake City and northern Nevada. So yeah, that's a pretty cold air mass, 50s and low to mid 60s there in Montana and Saskatchewan. Okay, let me get my cursor back and get on to the rest of our chart sequence. Okay, let's see where we're at. Yeah, let's do the upper level chart real quick. Still got the polar front jet up there in southern Canada and on up to Hudson Bay. But if you look at the big picture, like the continental scale, what's happening, there's a big vortex there over in northern Canada. This is kind of the Hudson Bay vortex gaining steam here. And on the backside of that, northwesterly flow bringing some of that cold air southward. That's kind of like the Polar Express right there. And that cold air in turn is helping to dig this trough that we see over southern Alberta. Also a little bit of troughing over Utah. Kind of a jet segment there in California into New Mexico. Let's see if that's a subtropical jet or a polar jet. So we'll drop down to 500. I can see a little bit of a wind field there, 25, 20 knots. Yeah, I would probably call that a branch of the polar front jet. So there it is, and you can see it's got a cyclonic turn, and by cyclonic I mean it looks like it kind of wraps around a low pressure area like that. Subtropical jets tend to be anticyclonic, so if we had a high pressure area down here in the Gulf, we might see the subtropical jet wrapping around like that. And you can see that this kind of paints out the circulation around a high. So this would be an anticyclonic jet. So if that was there, I would probably suspect a subtropical jet. But this, what we have today, that's a segment of the polar front jet. And we'll just take a quick look at the moisture, just to keep things moving here. Looks like a 15 to 20 knot southeasterly flow through much of the south and southeastern U.S. Heading on all the way up there past the tropical storm up into the Great Plains. And there's the big subtropical high there. Looks like that's centered in southwest Pennsylvania right there. And they have had some warm temperatures. Yesterday it looked like this. These were the highs yesterday. And yeah, look at that. 94 in Albany, New York. 96 in Boston. 95 out in, I think that's Altoona, Pennsylvania. And yeah, pretty much 90s all through this area. So yeah, you do have to head up to Maine to get the cooler temperatures, even though there's northwesterly flow there. Let me see if there's this evening's data. Nope, not yet. It's still another 30 minutes before that product's out. So, all right, let's head into the thickness chart. This kind of gives us an idea of where the fronts are, and what we're doing is we're taking all that stuff that we did over the past 20 minutes and we kind of put it together here. So what do we see here? Cold air mass up there centered in northern Saskatchewan. So I might put K for cold air mass. Looks like an even colder one up there in the, oh, that's off the screen. Let me bring this down here. Yeah, an even colder air mass up here in the western Arctic, Canadian Arctic there. So yeah, some of these air masses are coming down. The leading edge of the southern cold front looks like that. Warm front almost to James Bay, like that right there. And looks like a secondary front. Possibly, yeah, something like that right there. So this is the reinforcing shot right there of cold air coming down, and this is the initial one here. And then looking down south, this gives us a really good picture of the Bermuda High. The Bermuda High itself is way out here, but an extension of that comes into the eastern U.S. like that right there. And then on the southern edge of that Bermuda High, this is the supply of tropical air coming in from the southern Atlantic and Caribbean. So as long as that's in place, that'll bring moisture, easterly waves, and the occasional tropical cyclone all through this corridor right here. And just to look at the precipitable water, this is something that we look at this time of year. It's the values are definitely coming up. All this dark green, this is over 2 inches. If you squeezed out the entire atmosphere above a given spot, like Dallas or Houston, you'd get about 2 inches of rain. So some of it is centered around that tropical cyclone right there, and the rest of it is with this deep plume of tropical air coming up into the south central U.S. there. And there is the opposite of that. If you look up where the subtropical high is up there in the northeast U.S., on the other side we have dry air advection in the Canadian Maritimes and Maine right there. So we get this white color right there. So that's dry air heading out into the northern Atlantic. And a similar situation right here. Cool, dry air coming out of Saskatchewan and Manitoba into North Dakota and Minnesota. So the leading edge of that right there. And as we get more of these cold air masses working into the eastern U.S., we're going to see more of this whitish, these lighter and white colors moving down into the central and eastern U.S. Okay, yeah, we've gone through a lot of stuff here. Let me go down to the mesoscale model data, and I'll check in on chat, see how things are going. And this is from College of DuPage. They've got a really good analysis and model viewing site, so you definitely might want to check that out. It's at weather.cod.edu. So that's where this is coming from. Okay, let's see here on chat. David Lumbert there, central Arkansas, going to get that rain there. 90 degrees, 70-degree dew point. Brian Lowe from Delmarva says bring on the tropics. JT from Crystal Lake, Illinois, 85 over 69. Erica Baker there in southeast Kansas, 79 over 74. Got Shirley Keese there, welcome to the show. Brian Lowe, Carl Berghoff, Shirley Keese says please hit the like button. Let's see here. Fun with Tech, Alexi Pinkson Walsh, Mike Estwick, Ron Chalfont, Kim C. Carl Berghoff, Ron Chalfont doing the rain dance. Okay, Gordon's still a tropical storm. Okay, appreciate that. Willie Greenway there in Georgia joining us, and Mike Estwick doing some hand analysis. Plenty to look at. Okay, let's start looking more at the model data for a look at what's coming up over the next couple weeks. So this is the NAM prog of Gordon there, and this is how it looked around noon. And up in the northern, see what we're looking at here is the 925 millibar winds. This is up at about 2,500 feet, so it gets a little bit above some of the friction near the surface. And what we're looking at here is about 55 knots, just north of the center of the circulation. So we can kind of use this to kind of track the progress of the circulation. So you can see it looks like it picks up in peaks right around 4 p.m. So that's how it looks right there. It looks like 55 to 60 knots. And then the next frame, 0Z, which is about 25 minutes ago, looks like that. It does look like the model has gone a little bit too far to the west. We can see that. Looks like 55 to 65 knots in the center, and then you can see it starts falling apart there as we get to 9 to 12 p.m. And then we don't have complete frames for tomorrow morning, but by 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. it looks like that. So we're all the way down to 40 knots. These would be characteristic of the wind gusts at the surface. So the circulation falling apart there, and then we see it just kind of drift there into Arkansas. And due to the very weak steering flow, there is some uncertainty where this is going to go. The center tracks kind of take it up into El Dorado, Pine Bluff, but we could see it veering to the west towards Thursday and Friday, or further towards Shreveport, and that's kind of up in the air right now. So that's how that looks at the mesoscale. We'll just kind of piece that together there with the pivotal weather charts. So you're probably more familiar with these. And that does show a little bit of Gordon there at the edge. So there goes the circulation. You can see that the heavier precip favoring the right part of the track. So it's going to be kind of rainy there in Jackson and I guess Meridian, places like that. And looks pretty quiet there in Texas. So let's see what the patterns are going to be like over the next couple of weeks. You can see things are pretty busy there in the Pacific. We'll take a quick look at that shortly. But it looks like that trough out in the western U.S. kind of starts filling in there. There goes the remains of Gordon. Looks like a little bit of ridging building into the Montana and northern Rockies area. The subtropical high over Virginia kind of hangs on for at least a couple more days. And then it looks like the next change we're going to see is maybe towards the 9th and 10th as this strong zonal flow comes into the Pacific Northwest. So that's going on up there. And it looks like the subtropical high starts repositioning. And we see it kind of building into the southwestern U.S. once again towards the 11th. There it is right there over New Mexico. And then we see Frederick, or let me get the name of that storm there. Give me a second. I want to bring up some of the NHC stuff anyway, so let me do that real quick. Oh, Florence, okay. Yeah, Frederick did not sound right. Anyway, that's making a slow kind of meander to the north, the west-northwest there, and that's where the GFS is starting to pick up that circulation there. And you can see that it approaches the east coast, intensifying as it gets to that Gulf Stream region, and looks like it's kind of threatening the coast there, Virginia, Cape Cod, and then it recurves, heads out to the east again. And then another system coming along the same track, but looks like a little bit of Fujiwara effect there with those two systems. And then the other thing that I noticed on the GFS was Olivia. Yeah, Olivia. There's this storm out here. This is southwest of the Baja California area. It's a Category 3 storm, 105 knot winds, and that is moving along a track that could take it towards the Hawaiian area there. It is going a little bit further north than the previous system, so that might keep the intensity down a little bit. In fact, they're expecting that to kind of slowly diminish. But the GFS track is interesting. Let me show that to you. Okay. Yeah, there it goes right there. And then as we get towards the 11th and 12th, they got it crossing the islands right there. Now, from what I saw in the hurricane forecast, it looks like that's going to go through maybe as a tropical storm or tropical depression there, but if the GFS is correct, that would head it right for the islands. Looks like NHC was bringing that a little bit further north, and the ECMWF model was also steering to the north on that. So this could be a southern worst-case scenario on that system there. Then as far as the U.S., let's see. Looks like that ridge really starts building in towards the 2nd and 3rd week of September. There it is parked over Texas, so I guess we're going to be seeing things drying out there. Deep southwesterly flow in the Rockies and the West Coast area. That'll keep the storm track well to the north, even though it looks like there's a lot of cold air up in Canada there. That's a pretty good vortex. That's a pretty good system coming down. I wonder if these systems are going to be able to break down that ridge. See how strong that ridge is? That is really... That's really built in there into the Midwest around the 16th or 17th. So it looks like summer may not quite be over for the Midwest. It's like a little bit more hot weather for that area. Then just to show you the air masses, actually I'll give you the ECMWF. This is the European model, and I'm going to compare that with the GFS. We'll compare the American and European model. So this is for the same time. And you can see that it's bringing the hurricane towards the east coast, just offshore. And you can see the European model keeps that a lot further away from the U.S. So that's kind of a big thing. But the European model, it's also really building that subtropical high into the Midwest. So it looks like possibly maybe a late season heat wave for that area towards the 12th, 13th, 14th. We'll keep an eye on that there. Okay, so let's see. Putting together the forecast. There's that high precipitable water coming into the south central U.S. Here comes Gordon coming inland. And once all that's out of the picture, it looks like a little bit of a... Hang on, let me reset the pen. Give me a second. Yeah, basically resetting the pen is like switch between as many windows as possible and keep hitting the pen key, and eventually it'll work. I think I got it working. Okay, let's get back to the charts. All right, so there's all that tropical air over the southeastern U.S. So that's going to start picking up once again. And then we see a polar high coming into the Great Lakes area. There's the leading edge of that front right there. And as Gordon moves in, you can see this area of enhanced precipitable water. This is a lot of tropical moisture. Take a look at what's going to happen with that moisture field. It's being acted on by kind of a northeast flow coming from this polar high. So that's going to keep a lot of that moisture from getting away. It's going to kind of keep it concentrated in this area right there. So if we run that forward, what you see is the moisture just kind of sitting out in this area, shears apart a little bit, and then it sneaks back into Arkansas, Louisiana around the 13th, 14th, and into Texas just after that. So that's probably going to correspond to a little bit of an increase in precipitation. And then it looks like down to the south, a little bit of an easterly wave possibly moving in from the Gulf. So that little easterly wave, that could correspond to maybe, depending on how the Gulf looks, that we might have to watch that as far as development. This is a precipitable water anomaly. This is another way to look at all that. And let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so there's Gordon right there. You can see that plume of moisture. If we run that forward, what I'm talking about is down here in the Caribbean. See that right there? That's an easterly wave moving in from just north of Venezuela. This is on the 8th. And then if we run that forward, see that easterly wave? It's moving towards the coast of Honduras and Belize. And then it starts entering the Gulf around the 12th, 13th, 14th. So this could be an area of disturbed weather, kind of in this area. We would probably have to watch that for tropical development, and then we're going to get some piece of that into Texas, Louisiana, and adjacent states, maybe around the 15th or so. So we'll keep an eye on that there. So again, this is the precipitable water anomaly, and they have this on pivotalweather.com. It's definitely worth looking at there. Okay, let's see here. One last check-in on chat here. Carl Burkhoff's got some links there. Appreciate that. Justin Pulliam bought the Red Book. No? Was it the Red Book? Yeah, that was it. I appreciate that. Yeah, much appreciated. We do have those books over at Weather Graphics. In fact, let me just put up the link here. Yeah, there it is. So you can learn. Actually, that's not the link, but anyway, that's the donation page for the webcast. The actual link is at weathergraphics.com. So you can go there to pick up books on how to forecast. And we cover a lot of this in all the different books. And yeah, definitely pick up a copy there. And Ron Chalfant says a very good resource. I appreciate that. Refers to it all the time. Weather Forecasting Handbook, 5th edition. JT mentioning that. And very good. Okay. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for me. I appreciate y'all joining the webcast. We will be back on Thursday at the usual time, 7 p.m. So until then, take care and have a good evening. Bye-bye.